Hi, this is Pinapsha Sayyad with our new video regarding systematic review of literature. With every research proposal, thesis, manuscript, you have to set a scene before you proceed for your manuscript or whatever you're writing. Literature review is actually the information regarding the available facts on your topic of interest. This is when we define scientifically, then gathering of information from related sources and presenting it in a logical scientific way. And this logical scientific way actually provide a facts background for your work. There is difference between a literature review and an essay. While you're writing an essay, you don't have to think about your conclusion, your future directions, and the further research that is required on the topic. But literature review needs to be focused on a particular topic. Then it highlights the flaws in that literature, and then it draws a conclusion along with suggestion of future directions. If we broadly categorize, then literature review can be easily divided into narrative review and systematic review. Narrative review is the way when you just pick and choose the studies that support your argument or your research question or your theory, and then you just put them together and make a literature review. That is simple narrative review. This narrative review was commonly used in medical sciences before Cochrane overviews, but now since systematic review has got its own value, and it is widely accepted in clinical sciences, while narrative review is no more considered in clinical sciences. So systematic review is the review of a clearly formulated question that uses systematic and explicit methods to identify, select, and critically appraise related research and to collect and analyze data from the studies that are included in the review. Systematic methods may or may not be used to analyze and summarize the results of the included studies. By this definition, this is almost the same, but if you are doing further analysis of your selected studies, it is called meta-analysis. But when you are presenting almost the same thing without doing statistical analysis of those studies altogether, then it is called a systematic review. So the systematic review aims to address research problems by identifying, critically analyzing, and integrating the findings of all the relevant high-quality individual studies addressing one or more research questions. Now here one question arises, that why do we need to do systematic reviews? So let me give you one example. If you are going through literature and you find a few studies which have done research on same topic, let's say 5 studies have conducted clinical trials and those studies compared a tablet with a surgical procedure. 2 of these studies are saying that tablet is really good for this particular treatment, while 2 are saying that surgery is good. One is saying there is no difference between the outcome of the disease if you are giving tablet or you are going for surgery. Now just think that you are actually nowhere because the results are so confusing. In these situations, when you combine all these 5 studies and do a systematic review and meta-analyze those results, then you can present a robust data and you can make a situation clear. So that's why we need systematic reviews. Systematic reviews have certain qualities, that they are objective, systematic, transparent, and replicable. There are certain guidelines for systematic review. One is CONSORT, that is only for randomized controlled trials. STAR, that is assessment of multiple systematic reviews. Then PRISMA, that is preferred reporting item for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. I always recommend PRISMA guidelines while doing systematic reviews for any kind of work you are presenting, like in manuscripts, in thesis, dissertations. So this is the easiest way. There are few stages of doing literature review. First stage is to define your research question, then select sources of research material, set inclusion and exclusion criteria for studies, search literature, evaluate material, appraisal based on scientific contents, analyze your findings, organize literature review. So the first stage is find your research question. Selection of topic is very important. We have another video on selection of topic, so if you are interested, you can go through that video to learn about selection of topic. Then you have to define your aims and objectives. We have again a video on aims and objectives, and structuring a research question is included in selection of topic video. So you can see these topics in greater detail on those videos. However, in simple definition, there are certain stages to design a research question. First and most important for that is to get an idea. You can get this idea from anything. Even while in the morning you're reading a newspaper and you see something that giving some alarming thing, or that is something new, and you cannot think of the answer of that question, or if you see certain pattern of diseases and you think that you need to explore that, why this is happening in this particular pattern. So that is the idea you just get from anywhere. Then you think through this idea whether it is really a research question, you are interested in answering that question. Then check your idea through literature, that if it has already done, it is overdone, or it has not yet explored. If it is not yet explored, or it is not explored the way it should have been done, then your research question is acceptable. Now you have to define your research question. A good research question should have population on which the study is being conducted, then study design, whether it is a cohort study, randomized control trial, or whatever. Then outcome you are thinking of that study, then intervention or exposure should also be mentioned in your research question. Then the sources of information. There are many sources of information, but when you are writing your thesis or your manuscript, so most commonly we use is the articles published in scientific journals, but you can also refer to books, newspapers, historic record, commercial reports and statistical information, government reports, other people's theses and dissertations, and some grey literature as well. Now the actual work starts here. Before you start your literature search, you have to choose keywords based on your research question. Then you have to choose databases for search. Select your inclusion and exclusion criteria in the search engine. Select studies from title, then select studies from abstracts, and go through full articles. when you are selecting inclusion exclusion criteria, you have to keep in mind your research question. You have to think about definition of your variables, then methodology you will be accepting for the studies you are going to include in your literature, then research designs and the participants and study population included in those studies, then time frame in which those studies been conducted, and the data, the sample size, the way it is analyzed, etc. So you have to include all these things and give a particular thought about everything. Then you have to decide about search engines. Most commonly used in medical science is PubMed. You can also consider Scopus and ISI Web of Science. Here's some grey literature such as Google Scholar, OpenGray and OpenDoors. For the process, you have to start from selection from titles. Keeping each keyword as a separate search area, you put that keyword in PubMed and then go through the titles of all the studies coming up with that particular keyword. Then once you select studies based on title, then you go through abstracts of those selected studies and choose studies which are fulfilling your inclusion and exclusion criteria. And once you have selected from abstracts, then you have to go through full articles of those studies. Here is the Prisma flow diagram, which is really helpful while you are summarizing your literature. So first stage is identification of your record. So when you put your keyword in the search engine, the studies will come up. So you are going to identify these studies through titles. Then in here, if you see, records are identified through database searching. Then additional record identified through other sources, like when you go through the references giving in the selected studies, or you find from Google Scholar or from the other books. So once they are identified, you go through titles and delete all the duplicates. Then you come up with certain number of studies. Then you go through abstracts of those studies and see if they are fulfilling your inclusion criteria. If the answer is yes, you can put them in selected studies, and on basis of the screening on abstracts. And then you have to mention the number which was excluded, and in summary for your own notes, you have to mention why those studies were excluded. Once you're done with the abstracts, then you have to read full articles and assess if they are eligible to be included in your literature review. If the answer is yes, then you have to put the number of studies which fulfilled your eligibility criteria, and also mention the number which were excluded along with the reason why they were excluded. Then you have to include the number which were included in the synthesis of your literature review, and if you are doing meta-analysis, then you have to include that number. You can evaluate the material once the studies are selected. Then you have to evaluate the material on the basis of bibliographic data. Once you have evaluated the material based on their contents and also their bibliography, then you have to put all these studies in a proper plan and in a systematic way. So this is exactly like you put some pieces, small pieces of a picture. The easiest way to organize your studies is to make them in chronological order by publication date or trend, or you can make them in a thematic way, consider different themes or based. And then you have to link those studies, and the easiest way and practical approach of linking those studies is to put all the studies which are in agreement of your hypothesis, put them all together along with their logic why they are supporting your theory, and also putting those studies together which are disagreeing with your. Once you are done with all this practical work, now the final thing is to present your literature review. The most pragmatic and acceptable approach is to put all those studies in a summary table and then define in text when you are writing your literature review. So summary table should include the author, type of study, sample size, design of the study, data collection approach, and key findings. This will make your life easier, as well as when you're structuring your literature review and you want to get them published as a piece of work, as a systematic review, then this should include title, structured abstract, introduction, methodology of your literature search, results, discussion, and conclusion. But if you are doing for your manuscript or your dissertation or your thesis, then the method will be a little different. For your manuscript, you just need to put introduction and your key findings of the literature, and instead of conclusion, you will present rationale of further work required, and the same method will be adopted as well. Thank you very much.